Now let's talk about the GSL format. As I said before, the GSL format I think is actually fantastic. I think it's probably going to be one of the best ways you can truly determine, seeds as 1 through 4 seeds from a group if you need that. Now, however, for this event specifically, with how it continues on, I think it's not good for this event. I think this event would have been much better off with a I don't even know if it would have been better off. See, the single elimination is what makes it really, really interesting. Okay, so I'll start there real quickly. Single elimination, when that was first announced, I was fine with that. I honestly am all for the idea of a single elimination tournament. My reasoning for that is because you look at traditional sports, what playoff is not single elimination in traditional sports? There's none that I can think of off the top of my head, at least of the big sports. And in the U.S. here, so we got American football, we got basketball, we got hockey, we got baseball. Those are our 4 major sports. All of them are just straight up single elimination. Now, the reason why that works is because they play this regular season. They play this before where that helps determine these specific seedings going into the event, where at that point with the sample size of matches that you have and everything, it's ideally going to work out to where, okay, the first place seed faces the 8th place seed or whatever. At that point, the first place seed is definitely the overwhelming team. They should be victorious with how well they did in this regular season against a team that did very mediocre to just barely passing and being eligible for said playoff. So, and then, as a result of that, we usually see them move on. Now, there have been instances where the first place seed doesn't move on. I mean, that can happen. Is that an issue? No, I don't think it is. I mean, it's a playoff. I mean, the way I've grown up, the way I see it is that you need a win. I mean, this idea of we need a second chance. Oh, the game's different. Oh, esports are different. Oh, Dota 2, anything can happen in basketball. Anything can happen in football. Football is a great example, actually. American football, when it comes to anything can happen on any given Sunday. That great quote that's been said so many times by so many different people. Literally anything. I mean, just whether it's an injury, whether it's the ball bouncing off a helmet awkwardly and going in the other team's hands. I mean, anything can happen, but that doesn't mean oh, well, we should get a second chance because we lost that game. No, that's it. It's come to an end. The other team moves on. They won that tournament match. So I'm fine. So this all goes back to the idea of single elimination. I'm personally fine with. Now, with that said, so this kind of leads back to my GSL format idea, where this is where I'm not fine with the GSL format here. As I said with the single elimination, the thing that really makes it work is you have this sample size of work before the tournament that leads into it with the seedings. My issue with what they're doing here is, sure, they're getting matches that seed teams into it, but the biggest issue with that is, one, their initial seeding in the group stages, it seems random. It seems completely, pulling numbers out of a basket, out of whatever. Which, okay, if you're going to do that, fine. If you're going to do that, okay. But even if you're going to do that, it needs to honestly be maximum of 2 groups, if not even just 1 group where every team plays another. And again, I know we're in a realistic world when it comes to tournament organization here and everything. We can't sit here and say, oh, well, they should just all play each other, best of 3, and then we have our seedings from there. Okay, there's time constraints, there's schedule constraints, but then you need to adjust to that idea. With how they have it right now, oh, excuse me there. So how they have it right now, I'll pull up the image right here. They literally have it so when it comes to seeding in the playoffs, this is how it works right now. The first place seed is going to play a random 4th place seed in the playoffs. Okay, so you say to yourself, well, okay, yeah, they're playing a worse team from another group. Well, what if they get matched up with a team out of Group B? There's a lot of people, we'll talk about this a little bit later on, but that are giving this Group B over here this quote-unquote group of death. Any of these teams is honestly able to win this group right here, in my opinion, if not get 4th place. Say Newbie chokes up whatever happens on Saturday. Whatever happens tomorrow, they choke up, they lose to MVP Phoenix, and then all of a sudden they get knocked out by NP in the finals due to some cheesy strats. They're the 4th place seed. They end up playing a 1 seed, which, say, it happens to be Evil Geniuses. Wait a second. Evil Geniuses is playing Newbie in the first round of a single elimination tournament? arguably two teams that have some of the best winning chances of this tournament. What? And why did this happen? Well, because we randomly place teams into these GSL formats here. Again, I say randomly a little bit lightly. I understand they took 2 invited and 2 qualified teams and then threw them together again, that's from my understanding with how it worked. But that's basically what's going on right here. So, again, my biggest flaw going now to the single elimination, as much of a fan of the idea of it I am, I do not like the execution because the seeding initially is not good. It's so limited in the sample size of matches that it just does not work out. Now, if they had 2 teams or 2 groups of 8 teams in each group, and say they did best of 2 matches, like a lot of these round robin or group stages happen to be, from there, I think that would make a little more sense. Then you take the first place team from Group A, you match them up against the 8th place team from Group B. At that point, the sample size all of a sudden has gotten pretty extreme. These teams have played 14 games over a 1 or 2 day period or whatever it is. Okay, yeah, the team that went, undefeated or 12-2 compared playing a team that went 2-12. Yeah, the 12-2 team definitely is very likely going to be that much better and deserving in that matchup. But they didn't do that. Again, this is a very, very small sample size of matches. Literally, we're getting basically these teams are playing 2 series, and then that's it. I guess in some cases they're playing 3 to find out the 2nd and 3rd place seed. Excuse me there. But again, the way they have the format set up now, it really does make for a very scary single elimination first round, which in the end, you know what, as a spectator, okay, fine. That's a little more hype. Maybe we get that newbie versus EG matchup in the first round. Does it suck for the teams? Hell yeah, that sucks for the teams. I mean, we're talking about, and especially when you look at the prize pool, again, if EG matches up against newbie, again, this is this is an extreme case, but this is a case that could happen. So that's why I keep going back to it. But EG matches up against newbie in the first round. All of a sudden, EG, say they go undefeated in Group C. Newbie ends up getting 4th place for whatever reason. EG then has to play newbie in the first round, and then newbie takes him out 2-1. EG went from going 4-0 the group stages to being dominant to all of a sudden having to play in one of the best teams in the tournament just because they had an off day or whatever in newbie. And now EG's finishing 9th through 16th, getting the minimum prize pool. That's that. It sucks. That sucks. That really should not be how it is from the player's perspective. And I really feel for the players here when it comes to how this format is looking. Again, I'm not against single elimination. I really want to make that very, very clear. Definitely not against single elimination. I'm against with how they played out this format, with how they lead in the seeding into the main stage here. So, and exactly, there's the other side of the spectrum, as Nachi says. At the other side of it, the newbie, a team that had a very off day, they went winless in their group stages. All of a sudden, they win one match and then they're in the top 8. Like, it's like there's that other side of it. They're like, wait a second, how did that happen so fast? So again, now there's always this saying of like, well, don't just say there's a problem, fix it, or give some ways to fix it. Well, again, so I've given one of my ways to fix it with they should have done 8-team groups. Okay, well, again, scheduling, blah, blah, blah. They weren't going to do that. Another way they could have fixed this, I feel like, and they could have stuck with this same format here of the GSL format. They could have stuck exactly with this. However, leading into the bracket stage, I wrote it down right here. Let me refer to it real quickly. So basically, yeah, what I think would have been a much better way to do this with how they've decided to do this format was instead going into the bracket stage, you have a 3rd place team face a 4th place team from another group. So say you have 3rd place from Group A, play 4th place from Group D, and so on. So each of the groups, they all do that. That sets up the first round of this single elimination tournament. The winner of that match then moves on to play the 2nd place seeds of each of the groups in a random order. The loser is done. The loser finishes 13th through 16th. And this way also allows for a little bit more of a split in the prize pool, which, some people may argue is actually better. But anyways, so there's that. And then on top of that, then the 2nd and 3rd place teams play, and then the winner of that then plays the 1st place seed team in a random order. and then that sets up. So basically, with this format here, if you go undefeated or if you finish first place in your group, you're getting top 8. For me, I don't see that as a huge issue. In fact, double elimination tournaments, it basically, so what I'm doing is basically setting up a double elimination tournament, kinda, with a single elimination format, right? So why not do that? What's so wrong with that idea? When it comes to the scheduling, from my understanding, it would be basically the same amount of matches because the 3 versus 4 seeds, you got 4 different matches, and then the 2 versus the winner of that, that's 4 other matches. So that's 8 matches in total. That's your first round of your tournament. Right now, it's round of 16. There's 8 matches. That's your first round of your tournament. And then the winners of those move on to the round of 8, where the first place seeds got the bye to, and then it just continues on from there. I don't know why they didn't do this, something like that. If they want to take my idea and change the format and do that, then I will gladly let them do that. But I don't know why. Like, I would have loved to have been a part of the process here. I've been a part of these with these meetings and stuff where we're discussing these formats of these events that we want to do and whatever. But I would have loved to be part of the major here for the discussing the format of the event and see what the logical reasoning was behind doing it the way they did. Because really, man, they are really, really, really screwing a lot of these teams in some ways in terms of the potential to get knocked out so quickly and not really giving them a chance at the same time to prove themselves initially. It's just so minimal, again, with the GSL format and the amount of matches. So, and also, with the way they have it set up right now, it also goes back to the idea that with the GSL format right now, it almost makes the group stages pointless. It's not 100% pointless, but it's a lot less impactful than they could have been, like I said, with the example that I gave, or even kind of switching it up to 2 8-team groups or something like that. I don't know. I don't know what Valve was thinking here, to be very, very blunt about it. I really don't when it comes to this format. Again, single elimination I love. I love the idea of single elimination. I think it actually makes a lot more sense in some ways, and I'm just fine with it. But how they did it with the GSL into the single elimination is just, it's bad. It's bad, and again, it's going to maybe screw over some teams right here. But in the end, you need a win. It is the format. Complaining obviously doesn't do anything at this point. I could understand why some of the teams may be upset about it, but you got to win. You got to play your matches. You got to win. That's really what it comes down to here in the end. So there is my fun little rant on that whole situation right there. So what do you guys think? What do you guys think in chat? I've kind of been glancing over, referring to it quite a bit. They could have gone full CSGO and eliminated from the groups. I mean, well, see, that was kind of an idea that I was thinking, too. Like, what you could have done is you could have basically made the losers match, the 3rd, 4th place teams, excuse me, an elimination match. You could have basically made it, at least on the bottom end, where it's like, okay, one of these teams is getting eliminated. So at least at that, it's like, okay, we got first place. We didn't have to worry about that. We're comfortable. We're good to go. Like, at least there's that, but now I get why they wouldn't want to do that because, again, you fly teams out to this event, you pay for them to stay in these hotels, you really want to put on a show for all these teams and these players and everything. To have them getting knocked out after essentially one day of matches is shitty, right? So that really sucks. So I would not be the biggest fan of that, but I would be more of a fan of that with the current format, to be frank, with how the seeding and the impacts look here. So once again, guys, if you want to whisper me on Twitch, if you want to get the chance to join me in Discord here to talk about the format specifically, as I happen to be on this topic right here, or just another question that you may have about the Boston Major, feel free to do so, and I can throw you that link there. Have you join me on the show? So, all right. Okay, so now this is interesting because this does lead into our first poll that we had, poll question that we had for you, the community, and this was the result. No, not that one. Here we go. This was the result of the question, do you like the format of the Boston Major, which was GSL groups into single elimination? The results were, this is about 50 or so votes, I believe. 51, it looks like. No was the majority, but barely. I mean, this one was basically pretty even all throughout the votes. It was kind of just back and forth. We're going to almost pretty much call that a draw. Obviously, again, a slight advantage for no, but pretty much a draw amongst the masses right here. And, you know, it's, again, I get why people would say yes for this. Initially, I was fine because, again, single elimination was the one thing that people had the biggest issue with, which I was fine with. When that was announced, hell yeah, I'm all for that, as long as they took care of the initial group stages leading into it, as long as they took care of the seeding leading into it. With their format, with the GSL, with how it's set up, I don't think they necessarily did, which, again, I've kind of gone over now plenty. But that's how the results turned out here for our community polls that we did. So thank you, by the way, for those that did participate in these polls. It definitely helps bring some fun information here as far as what we're discussing. So do appreciate that once again. All right, set that back there. Okay. So again, that's the format of the event and kind of some issues there. Anything else that I wanted to add? Well, that pretty much covers what I wanted to talk about there. But hey, you know, by the time it's one of those things where we're making it seem like a big deal now, and again, it kind of is. But get to the playoffs, we get to December 7th, and the matches start. It's like whatever. We start playing them, and it's all forgotten, right? I mean, that's going to be the case. That's how it usually works. But I do think it's something that I hope Valve really looks at going into their next major. I want to see the single elimination kept. Part of me really does